Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us at this Your Overseas Home webinar. Hopefully you can all hear and see me okay. Today, we're going to be talking about the visa and residency essentials for your move across to Portugal. So if you are looking to move across to Portugal, you're in the right place. You've done well so far. It's great to have you all here with us, whether you're watching live or on demand. Today, we're joined by the lovely Jessica Ramos, a paralegal from Matt Law. Hi, Jessica. Thanks for being here. Before we start, Jessica, it'd be great actually just for you to do a quick introduction to yourself and share with our viewers a little bit more about what Matt Law actually does, and then we can go into the next part of the webinar, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Steph. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank you all for being here this afternoon. My name is Jessica, as you said. I'm a Portuguese lawyer. I work at Matt Law, and I live in the beautiful Algarve. But regarding Matt Law, we are a Portuguese law firm focused on real estate agent investments and immigration. And we have two offices, one in Lisbon, another one in the Algarve, as I said. And I'm very happy to discuss this topic today. So if you would like to move to Portugal, as Seb said, you are in the right place indeed.
Thanks, Jessica. So great to have you here. And yeah, we've been working with Matt Law for a number of years now, and I know yourself and the team at Matt Law have helped countless number of our clients and other clients from across the world on their journeys of buying property over in Portugal. So thank you for all of your support and help with them so far. And I'm sure hopefully everyone listening in will be able to take some of that knowledge and from this conversation as well. No, I know we've been working for a number of years together, Jessica, but just to clarify for everyone listening in, Portugal is a relatively large country. Do you operate all across Portugal?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Although
good
we have,
stuff.
of
So
course,
everyone listening in.
offices. Everyone, exactly. Part
Brilliant.
here in Portugal.
Brilliant. Okay, great. So yeah, for everyone listening in, my name is Sebastian Bampton. I'm one of the account managers over here at Your Overseas Home and Property Guides. We're organised this seminar or webinar will be 30 minutes long. I'll be speaking to Jessica all about the visa residency options over in Portugal, and we'll go through it in quite a reasonably organised way. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the session. There should be a questions tab at the bottom right hand side of the screen. We will put your questions towards Jessica throughout this session. So please do feel free to test us as much as possible. If we don't get round to answering them all, fear not, we will pass them across to Jessica and the team at Matt Law to then follow up with you after this session and go through your requirements in a bit more detail. Yeah, if anyone wants to drop some information there in the questions tab about where you're looking to purchase in Portugal and some insight into your plans, we'll also be able to hopefully give a bit more context to your individual and unique plans throughout this session as well. So enough from me, Jessica. So I know we don't have all the afternoon to talk, unfortunately. So we'll go straight into some of the questions that we have already. Would it be I think a good place to start is, I suppose, talking around the 90-day rule, 180-day rule. So do you mind just explaining a little bit more about what that rule is and how it all works?
Yeah, so this is an important question, and I know this is a concern for many clients. Basically, the 180 days rule states that any foreign national who enters in the Schengen area can stay for up to 19 days in any 180 days. The rule, or in practical terms, the rule is not very easy to explain, but it should be noted that the 19 days start as soon as you enter in the Schengen area. So if you enter in Portugal today, your clock starts today and starts counting. On the other hand, the 180-day period is not fixed. Usually, I use this expression, it is a moving window, because it is based on the approach of looking backwards at each day of each stay. So we are always going backward to count the 180 days. For example, let's say if you enter in the Schengen area, for example, in Portugal, on November 1st. in a few next week, I think. You count backwards for 180 days from this date, from the 1st of November, and calculate how many days you have spent in the Schengen area during this 180 days. If during this period you have already spent, for example, 60 days, this means that you have another 30 days left in the Schengen area, and you can, of course, use the time here. To be honest, and when I speak about this rule, one thing that I always would like to highlight is that this rule, also known as well as a visa-free stay, because you enter in Portugal, for example, as a tourist with your passport, is not applicable to enters using a residence permit or a long stay visa. In this case, the rule will be different. So the 19 days rule is just for this visa-free stay as a tourist, using your passport, without any visa, without any residence permit, just a tourist.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Jessica. I know it's a question that we get a lot at Your Overseas Home. You know, what is the rule? And I think there is still that uncertainty around what are the implications. So thank you for making it so clear to everyone listening in. If, for example, someone was to overstay for whatever reason, what kind of implications are there? What would happen if someone was to overstay 90 days or 180 days over in Portugal?
So a non-EU national who stays in the Schengen area after and overstayed the 90 days without a residence permit or a long stay visa is illegally here in the country. Okay, so the consequence will depend, of course, on the country and on the law of the country, but penalties may be applied and a ban on re-entering the Schengen area may be applied as well. So, of course, we need to be careful when organizing, and when clients should be and should organize the agenda and this rule and the visits, of course, according to the rule, just to make sure that we avoid, of course, overstay. This also means, for example, that it is not possible to come to Portugal, for example, under this 90 rules and using just your passport and start working here. For example, you will overstay as well, so you can have these implications as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So that's very clear, Jessica. And we've got a question here from Madeline around the 180-day rule, 90-day rule. Does that apply to EU citizens, or would EU citizens be exempt from that rule?
Be exempted, yes.
Okay,
so this rule is only applicable to third countries nationals. Okay, so no, the European, of course, does not apply. The rule does not apply to an European. Sorry.
Okay, they're the lucky ones. Okay,
the
great.
Lucky ones, yes.
Brilliant. Okay, great stuff. And I know you mentioned there a couple of times, visas, and there's different rules for people that with visas, if they are looking for 90 days, 180-day rules, or perhaps even staying longer. What are the visa options for, let's say, retired people, semi-retired people, people that are looking to do potentially some work over in Portugal or work remotely? What kind of options are there in regards to visas for them?
Of course, this is always a case-by-case analysis. So this means that we should know and understand client situation in order to apply or to choose the right visa. But for a retired people, I would say a D7 visa for sure. The D7 is also known as the retirement visa or the passive income visa, and is the best option for those living on passive income. This includes, of course, pensions. This includes investments, passive income, rents, for example. For those people, of course, the D7 would be the best option. Yes. For the second one, sorry, the semi-retired maybe doing a bit of work online.
Yeah, semi-retired, maybe working online or remotely.
Here, I believe that we should analyze again client situation, and we can analyze two options here. The D7, because we have, of course, a semi-retired client But in addition, we can also analyze the digital nomad visa, also known the D8. And of course, considering that the client will be working online and remotely for a British, for example, employer, we can also apply for the digital nomad. I would say that the difference will be the income. So probably considering client's income, we can choose between the two options. Probably the D7 visa would be easier because of the required income, again, is much lower than a digital nomad. But of course, it depends on client's situation as well.
Sure. Yeah, I suppose every client's situation is different and unique, and one visa may be viable for someone, another may not be so. So I think the important part is having that conversation, obviously understanding what their requirements are, and then proposing a visa which best suits the needs from that person or client that's looking to move across to Portugal. In regards to, I suppose, golden visas, I know in the past there was golden visas that you could receive through investment in property. Do you mind giving me a bit more information about are you still able to do that, and is there still a golden visa? Where are we at with the golden visa over in Portugal?
Yes, so unfortunately we lost this option of investments in property, so buying properties and of course applying for a golden visa. But nevertheless, the golden visa program is still in place here in Portugal. So as an alternative, considering that of course buying a property is not enough, unfortunately, there are other investments, and with them you can apply, for example, for a golden visa. If you decide, we have other options, but just to give you the main ones, I think we have, for example, invest 500,000 euros in research activities carried out by public or private institutions here in Portugal, transfer 500,000 as well to create a Portuguese business, of course, to increase and to improve a company as well, transfer 500,000 euros as well, and buy investment funds. So the investment, the amount of the investment is the same. We are speaking about 5K. But the investment will be different. Instead of investing in a property, unfortunately, it is not possible anymore. We can invest, for example, in a Portuguese business. So we have options here in Portugal to apply for a golden visa as well. The options are different, but we have. And of course, has a lot of interest for investors as well, or it could be. And it still offers great advantages, such as the minimum periods of stay. Just to give you an idea, you can have a golden visa, be here in Portugal, but you can just stay, you have minimum short periods of stay. For example, 7 days in the first year or 14 days in the following years. It's nothing compared to a residence permit, for example, a D7.
Yeah.
It's completely different.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's a shame. I know some clients we helped purchase over in Portugal some years ago. That investment into property was their ticket to a golden visa, and it's a shame that isn't there. But still, it is still a viable option if you are looking to invest in outside of property. And obviously, Matt will be able to advise and help on that. You mentioned 500,000 euros, Jessica, for that golden visa. In regards to other retirement visas, which you mentioned, what are the income requirements for those different types of visas?
So, in terms of income for a retirement visa, so a D7 in this case, the amount corresponds to 12 Portuguese minimum wages. So, at this moment, the minimum wage in Portugal is 820 euros. So this means that the minimum annual amount for a retirement visa is around 10,000 euros per person, per applicant. Nevertheless, just to give you this, of course, idea, because I think it is important for the clients. For example, if you are moving with your wife, then the applicant needs 50% more for the second person. So this means that for a couple, moving to Portugal, the annual income will be 15,000 euros.
Okay, that's clear. And in regards to income, can you give some examples of what would actually suffice for income? Would a pension here in the UK be okay as proof of an income? Would would rental income be part of that income as well? What kind of income would actually warrant the visa and requirements for that visa?
For the retirement visa, we need to analyze, or we need to prove that client has passive income. Pensions will work, of course. Rents, for example, receiving a rent from the UK or any other country. Investments from a company, for example, investments for investment units as well. So any passive income will work. The difficult part here is, of course, to choose and to organize the documentation, because it is not just enough to show, for example, your bank statements proving that you have the funds. We really need to organize the documentation. We really need to prove that the client has this income, this specific income, for example, pensions, or the specific income, rents. This is the tricky part, let's say it.
Yeah, of course. I suppose that does take time as well. So if people are kind of leaving it to the point of, I found a property, now I need to sort a visa, it can hold up the process. And part of what we look to do at Your Overseas Home is help people understand that if you're looking to buy a property, have the conversation around a visa and what visa is best for you earlier. So everything's in place for when you find that property, and things can move relatively quickly. That's great. And I got a question here from Trevor, and also one from David, which we'll just ask afterwards, David. But Trevor's asked, with the visas that you mentioned there, so D7 visa, for example, I know you mentioned if there's a wife or a spouse involved, there's another 50% needed to prove of income. If there's perhaps children involved in that process as well, would that visa also be extended towards other family members?
Yes. So if, for example, that is why this is a client's a case-by-case analysis, and we should analyze the family situation and client situation. And yes, it is possible to, for example, have a main applicant applying for a D7 visa, for example, and then we can apply for family reunifications visa for a wife, for a children, for a parent, for example, who needs help, and of course needs help from the main applicants, for example. So it is possible, yes, to apply for family reunification. The income will be different, of course, and it depends on the members of the family, and of course the visas that you would like to apply for.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Jessica. And yeah, good question, Trevor.
Yes, it was.
So thanks very much. We've got another question here, which has come up quite a few times within in the office. I hear my colleagues on the phone speaking to clients that have these requirements. But David has asked, can the partner of an Irish passport holder stay in Portugal without 90-day issue? So if David's partner perhaps had an Irish passport, would that mean that he would be exempt from the 90-day and 180-day rule?
With an Irish passport, yes.
If it comes from the partner of him? So if he was married to an Irish passport holder, would that be sufficient to then not be held to ransom by the 90 and 180-day rule? So for example, if I have an Irish passport, I do not have to comply with the 90-day rules because you have an European passport. If my partner has a British passport, for example, so a third country, it is a third country national and has a different passport, he needs to comply with the rule. Sure.
So this means that he can come with me. Okay, so I can, for example, apply for a family reunification to my husband, but he needs to, of course, comply with this until he is resident in Portugal. As soon as he has, of course, the residence permit, as I said in the first question, I think, there is no need to comply with this rule because you have a residence permit.
Sure. So
I
that's
don't know
clear.
if I reply
It's
to
clear to
the.
me.
Okay, perfect. Happy to
Yeah,
know
I
that.
think it's if you have an Irish passport, great, you're exempt. Unfortunately, if you don't have an Irish passport or any European passport, you would be in fact held to the 90 and 180-day rule. And then obviously you need to talk about how you stay in Portugal with other means past those timeframes. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, David. We have a few more questions coming in. So thank you for keeping them coming. I know we've got just under about 10 minutes left. In regards to the actual process, then, Jessica, of applying for a visa, do you mind just talking us through what that process looks like? When is a good time to start talking about visas, and just kind of some general knowledge about what the process looks like for clients that are applying?
Okay, so this is the important part as well, because applying for a visa or relocating to Portugal should be organized. The process should be organized very carefully and with time. Okay, because it will involve several points and matters. I will just to give you an example, of course, taking care of the residency and apply for the permit, taking care of tax matters, taking care of driving licenses, importation of car, for example, if clients would like. So we need time to organize this. This is the point that I would like to highlight here. But in terms of process, I always explain that the application and the process has two stages. The first one takes place and starts at the Portuguese consulate in the country where the applicant lives. So, for example, if we have a British client, the process will start in the UK. And as soon as we have a meeting with the consulate, we need to apply for the visa. The visa usually it is valid for four months, and it gives you the legal rights to come to Portugal and wait here for your appointment to apply for the residence permit, which of course will lead us to the second step. The second step will be here in Portugal and involves a meeting with the Portuguese entity. SEF, now we call it EIMA, but it is the foreigners office here in Portugal. And the idea and the purpose of this meeting is, of course, organize all the documentation and apply for the residence permit, which is different, of course. So the residence permit is the final document. Only with this, the client can be considered as a resident here in Portugal.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, I know as we spoke about a little bit earlier, it can be very important part of the process, but also part of the process which can take time. And you want to be doing it correctly, making sure that you're getting the right visa, but also that you do it with plenty of time. So you're not worrying about, can I stay here? Can I not? So you're really important that these things are thought about early. So everyone listening in, you're doing well so far. You're in the right place, and it's good to see so many questions coming through. I know these things have a cost involved. Jessica, could you give us some insight into actually what the costs are and the timescales for applying, so people listening can get a bit of an understanding about how to budget for this part of the process?
That's the only million question, to be honest, because unfortunately, it is very, very difficult, to predict, because we are working with public entities. And unfortunately, sometimes it is quite difficult to get a meeting, to schedule a meeting with them. Nevertheless, according to our experience, I would say that 1 year and a half to complete the process with everything. So, and of course, giving us time to organize everything. It is possible in 1 year or less, but according to our experience, please count with 1 year and a half to take care of everything with time. Wow. In terms of costs, of course, clients should pay the administrative costs. We have to consider the consulate costs for the visa, and then the costs to issue the residence permit here in Portugal. And of course, if they wish, of course, legal fees, if they would like to be assisted during the process. With everything, I would say 2,000 euros per applicant, depending on the situation, but just to give you an idea, I would say this number. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you say that there's sort of timeframes involved, and they, can be quite a bit of time, quite a long process, to be honest. So yeah, great stuff for adding the clarity on the timeframes, but also potential costs that are involved. I know they will vary, but just for everyone listening, that will be useful to know. Now, I hope this doesn't happen, Jessica, but if perhaps something were to go wrong in the application for a visa or residency, on what basis might that happen, or on what basis might an application be refused?
First of all, that is why we try to be here to organize everything. But the truth is that the residency process is quite complex. Because we need to comply with all the requirements, all the documentation, everything. And so if we organize everything correctly, we will get a yes, hopefully. But to give you an idea and to answer, of course, the question, there are a number of reasons why the competent authorities may refuse an application. For example, if the visa doesn't apply to the client's case. For example, imagine that we discussed the D7 visa, a passive income visa. So imagine that you are applying for a D7 visa, but you do not have passive income, or you do not have documentation to prove that you have passive income. You can have passive income, but you do not have documentation enough to prove it. So we cannot, of course, proceed, and probably it will be refused. If the specific requirements of the visa are not met, for example, if we apply for a D8, the digital nomad, but you have a labor agreement that doesn't allow you to work remotely. So as soon as, of course, we schedule the appointment and we submit the labor agreement of the applicants with this clause saying that client is not allowed to work remotely. So you do not comply with the requirements. So if, for example, client has criminal record as well, it could be a reason to refuse the residence permit. So there are a few reasons, and that is why, again, it is very important to choose the visa, because we have several types of visa, and sometimes we have clients who arrive at the first meeting at the office with a clear idea of the visa they need. I need this. And sometimes when we start asking this and that, we realize that there are other and better options for that family, for that couple, for example. So it is very important to plan the process and to choose the visa.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point. I think there's a lot of information out there online, on perhaps social media, different places where people have undertaken similar journeys, and people probably have a view of what visa they need, or what part of the process it is that they're going to go down a route of. And until they perhaps have spoken to someone, an expert, it may be completely wrong for their requirements. So yeah, I think it's a really important point to highlight. Now, I know we're running out of time. Just I have a few more questions here, so I don't mind me just going through them, because I think they're really important parts of the process. Mm-hmm. One of them is around health insurance. Now, I know from my understanding, for visa applications, you need to have health insurance cover. Do you mind just talking us a little bit through the health insurance side of things for visas?
It is very important, and initially the answer is yes. So a private health insurance will be required to apply for the visa and for the residence permit. So during the process, you need to have a private health insurance. In a second stage, let's say it, as soon as the client gets the resident and receives the residence permit, we can register the client before the national insurance, the national health system here in Portugal. And of course, it is possible to use the public system, but only with the residence permit. So before you're having this magic document, you really need to have an health insurance.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Jessica. I know it comes up a lot as well, so it's great to get that clarity. Apologies, the sun is coming through on my face. I'm not in a cave or anything. I am still here. And in regards to actually what Matlaw can help with, as I said, I know Jessica, yourself and your colleagues at Matlaw have helped countless numbers of our clients in their journeys buying properties and living overseas in Portugal. Can Matlaw also help with tax matters, tax implications of living and moving across to Portugal?
Yes, so we try to help clients during all the process, since A to Z, we use this expression, because the idea is try to make your life easier, so there are several points that we need to organize, and this tax situation is one of them. So we try to help, and we have tax experts here in the office to try to help the clients as well. And usually we recommend one. I believe this is very important, because when you are moving, and of course moving to Portugal, this means that you will be considered a tax resident here in Portugal, and you need to declare all your income here in the country. So it is very, very important to understand, maybe, and sometimes before deciding that you want to apply for the visa and start the process, understand how you will be treated in terms of taxes, how much you will pay. So sometimes, and of course, if clients, we have clients interested, and this is very important for them, to analyze and to prepare a tax assessment before starting the process, to understand how the income will be treated here in Portugal.
Okay, great. And I think David had a question in there around taxes and how that would impact perhaps a pension. I think given your requirements, David, it'd probably be worthwhile having a conversation with Jessica and the tax advisors there, just because it can be a part of the process which can be overlooked, and there are huge risks involved within that. And what you don't want to be doing is obviously paying more tax than you should or need to be doing. I think everyone can all agree that tax is probably one of the worst ways to spend your money. That's good. And just one last question. I know, unfortunately, it's inevitable, just like taxes. What happens about inheritance, and would someone buying in Portugal or living in Portugal need to make a Portuguese will or will in Portugal?
This is very important as well. A will is always, always, always recommended if clients have assets here in Portugal. I'm speaking about cars, I'm speaking about properties, bank accounts, boats, etc. It is very important to organize, of course, the succession, the inheritance of the client, and the will is very, very important. It's the only way that, of course, one of the ways that we can do it. And just to add this note, this recommendation is especially important for citizens of third states, third countries, for example, for the UK, after Brexit, this is the scenario for British clients, because it is very difficult to execute a foreign will in Portugal. So sometimes I have clients saying to me, but I have a British will, but I have an American will. Yes, but it's very difficult to execute here in Portugal. The law is different, the requirements and the legal requirements to execute the will is very difficult. And of course, it doesn't make the process easier. It is, of course, the opposite. And I believe that the successors really, they are adding problems and difficulties, of course, to the process. Instead of just having a Portuguese will, will make the process much easier. So I really recommend a will here in Portugal. In addition, I don't know if I can add just this note, because when I speak about inheritance and the taxes, of course, I know this is a great thing about Portugal, because we do not have inheritance tax for direct successors, so a spouse or a children. And I believe that in other countries, of course, there is this type of tax, and here in Portugal we do not have it. So a children, for example, or a wife will not pay taxes for inheritance tax for receiving, for example, a property. This is quite interesting, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, you know, so there's a lot to think about when buying a property overseas. You know, there's countless things you need to work out and prepare for. And I think, you know, inheritance, tax planning, all these sort of things probably aren't at the forefront of people's mind. You know, people always feel finding the right property is one of the most important parts, which of course it is, but there's all these other implications which people need to be aware of, and also have the confidence to be able to work with someone like yourself, Jessica, to ensure that they are protected from all of those implications over in Portugal. So yeah, thank you for adding that in. So we have run over time. So Jessica, thank you so much for all your insightful tips and advice today. So I find it really useful, and also have learned quite a bit, even though we've done a couple of these over the last sort of 3 or 4 years. But thank you again for being here. We strongly recommend to everyone listening in, if you are seriously thinking about buying overseas in Portugal, or you are interested in buying over in Portugal, to get in touch with Matlaw directly to discuss your unique requirements in detail, to understand perhaps, you know, what visas you need, what tax advice you need, and perhaps inheritance as well. And we will also send across all of your details to Jessica and the team at Matlaw to get in touch over sort of the next coming days and weeks, and hopefully explain a little bit more about how they can help. Jessica, once again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today, and everyone listening in, thanks again for being here. There should be a link before we let you go at the bottom left of your screen that's just popped up. If you found Jessica's advice and this webinar useful, we'd really appreciate it if you left us a kind review. And everyone, good luck with the property hunting. Let us know if we can help, and we'll hopefully hear from you all very soon. Jessica, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
And thank
Jessica,
you, everyone.
take care.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.